Welcome everyone to my chess channel, where I share exciting and high-quality chess videos. Today I would like to share with you a thrilling game, a mind-blowing battle between two world-famous masters. Fabiano Caruana playing white, moving first, and Michael Adams. Bad. Playing black, defending with the queen side. Please enjoy the game. Pawn to e4. Caruana marches his central soldier forward with confidence, claiming territory as if planting a giant flag in the middle of the board. Pawn to f5. Adams instantly mirrors the gesture, tossing his own pawn down like a dare across the same battlefield. Knight to f3. Caruana leaps his knight into action, poking at the pawn on f5 with a grin of mischief. Knight to chix. Adams calmly answers, setting his own knight as a bodyguard, ready to shield the delicate pawn that just got challenged. Bishop to b5. Caruana slides his bishop forward, pinning the knight to the king, smirking as though he's forcing Adams to squirm. Knight to f6. Adams develops another knight, brushing off the pin and daring Caruana to prove his so-called pressure really matters. Pawn to d3. Caruana quietly shores up the center, looking humble on the surface but secretly strengthening his grip for long-term schemes. Bishop to c5. Adams places his bishop with authority, staring down the kingside like a sniper ready to fire at the first opening. Castles kingside. Caruana tucks his king safely into the corner, clearly signaling he's prepared for some sharp middle-game fireworks. Pawn to d6. Adams reinforces his structure, stubbornly refusing to be pushed around in the ever-so-fragile Sicilian landscape. d3 pawn move. Caruana builds a little wall, giving his bishop on b5 an anchor point and whispering of a future d4 push. Castles kingside. Adams answers by sliding his monarch to safety, rook activated and eyes gleaming for counterplay. Knight to d2. Caruana reshuffles his knight with patience, showing he's not in a hurry and loves his positional maneuvering. Knight to e7. Adams tucks his knight back, an odd little retreat that hides venomous intentions beneath its modest cloak. Knight to f1. Caruana reroutes the same knight closer to the king's side, plotting some sneaky support for pawn storms or piece invasions. Knight to g6. Adams flexes the other knight aggressively, pointing sharp horns straight toward Caruana's king flank. Pawn to h3. Caruana gives his king some breathing room, but also waves a little warning sign saying, "No bishop allowed on g4." No. Pawn to h6. Adams pushes his pawn, securing d5 as if laying concrete for a future outpost. Bishop to a4. Caruana retreats the bishop elegantly, refusing to trade just yet and keeping that pin in reserve like a hidden dagger. Bishop to b6. Adams slides his bishop back with a smirk, keeping the diagonal alive without losing dignity. Pawn to c4. Caruana seizes space on the queen side, waving the banner of expansion and hinting at a coming storm. Knight to a5. Adams dashes his knight to the rim, pointing menacingly at Fowler with the style of a street brawler. Knight to e3. Caruana lifts his knight elegantly into the center, eyeing juicy squares with royal ambition. Knight to Fowler. Adams lunges in brutally, his knight snapping up the square with no shame, crowding Caruana's king zone. Bishop to b3. Caruana slides the bishop home, keeping it safe while still staring at Adam's king like a hawk. Pawn to f5. Adams throws a pawn punch on the queen side, eager to chase that bishop even further. Pawn to a4. Caruana halts the threat with his own pawn, forming a barrier that says, "Enough is enough." Pawn to h6. Adams makes loft for his king and perhaps dreams of a pawn storm later on the king's side. Knight to h2. Caruana reroutes yet another knight, clearly plotting to land it on g4 or f5 like a kamikaze warrior. Bishop to e6. Adams calmly develops his piece, aiming it squarely at Caruana's queenside plans as if saying, "Don't get too comfy." None. Bishop to e3. Caruana responds by setting up a mirror bishop, squaring off along the same diagonal for maximum drama. Pawn to d5. Adams strikes boldly in the center. No more waiting, blasting open lines as the curtain rises on the true middle game. Knight captures e4. Caruana wastes no time, chomping down on the pawn and testing whether Adams dares to unleash chaos. Bishop captures e3. Adams immediately retaliates, snapping off Caruana's bishop and wiping the smug grin off that diagonal threat. Pawn captures e3. Caruana rebuilds with his pawn, plugging the gap but leaving his structure just a bit scarred. Queen to b6. Adams whips out his queen, aiming her dark stare at b2 like a hunter smelling fresh prey. Queen to e2. Caruana calmly shifts his own queen, ready to guard b2 and maybe coordinate some sneaky counterfire. Pawn to d4. Adams snatches back with his pawn, reclaiming territory and flashing a grin of equal trade. Pawn to d4. Caruana pushes hard in the center, refusing to be shoved aside, and the board starts crackling with tension. Knight to f6. Adams wisely retreats the knight, regrouping for defense while still holding strong central influence. Pawn to c5. Caruana advances his pawn like a bulldozer, chewing space on the queen side and pushing Adams backward. Queen to a6. Adams sidesteps with his queen, eyeing the queenside from a new angle, half defense, half lurking menace. Knight to g4. Caruana finally springs his knight into action, planting it aggressively like a thorn in Adams' side. Knight captures g4. Adams has no patience for theatrics, snapping the intruder away before it grows into a monster. Pawn captures g4. Caruana happily recaptures, doubling his pawns, but baring teeth at Adams' kingside defenses. Knight to d7. Adams calmly repositions, preparing reinforcements as if saying, "Don't think I'm rattled yet." Rook to 5. Caruana shoves a rook aggressively up the board, looking like a hooligan demanding entry into Adams' house. Pawn to g6. Adams immediately tries to kick that rook away, hoping intimidation works better than reason. Rook to f3. Caruana backpedals only slightly, keeping the rook alive while aiming it like a cannon toward Adams' king. Pawn to b6. Adams nudges a pawn forward, adding queenside stability, refusing to collapse under Caruana's pressure. Pawn to g5. Caruana surges with fury, launching his pawn like a wrecking ball at Adams' knight defenses. Knight to s7. Adams retreats the knight to the edge, looking cramped, but at least he keeps his pieces intact. Knight to c4. Caruana reroutes his other knight into prime territory, dominating the center with flair and confidence. Pawn to b5. Adams lashes out on the queen side, challenging the knight and clawing for breathing room. Pawn to a5. Caruana calmly locks the door, refusing to let Adams break through and cementing queenside control. Knight to g5. Adams swings his knight back, desperately trying to stir up counterplay against Caruana's aggressive formation. Rook to f2. Caruana doubles his rook preparation, cool as ice, ready to stack up firepower on the king side. Knight to e6. Adams finally centralizes, planting his knight with a touch of dignity in the middle of the board. Rook to f1. Caruana smoothly lines up his rooks, stacking cannons like he's preparing for an all-out assault. Knight to g7. Adams sheepishly backs his knight, looking more like a wallflower at a dance than a warrior. Rook to f6. Caruana blasts his rook forward again, stabbing into Adams' camp with relentless swagger. Queen to c8. Adams nervously slides his queen back, trying to cover holes but looking increasingly on the defensive. Queen to f2. Caruana centralizes his queen with casual menace, uniting forces for the kill shot. Queen to d7. Adams makes a shaky attempt to regroup, queen hovering like a tired guard over crumbling walls. Rook to f3. Caruana calmly drags his rook back, not retreating in fear but repositioning like a sniper adjusting scope. Rook to a8. Adams doubles up his rooks, piling iron bars across the back rank in a desperate show of muscle. Knight to a2. Caruana quietly reroutes his knight, like a hunter circling for the final angle of attack. Rook to e6. Adams pushes a rook forward, acting bold, though everyone can smell the panic beneath the move. Knight to g3. Caruana jumps the knight back into range, eyes gleaming with menace toward the kingside fortress. Rook to f6. Adams shuffles sideways, rooks crisscrossing clumsily as if tripping over each other in the hallway. Rook to gone. Caruana calmly lines up the heavy artillery, pointing the cannon straight down Adams' throat. Knight to g5. Adams lunges with his knight, but the gesture looks more like a last protest than a real threat. N5 move. Caruana slams his knight into f5 with a grin, planting the beast directly in Adams' fragile shelter. Pawn to gsf5. Adams has no choice but to capture, tearing open his own king's shield in the process. Pawn to gsf5. Caruana instantly recaptures, opening files like swinging doors into Adams' living room. Queen to d8. Adams shuffles the queen back yet again, shrinking into a ball as pressure mounts. Pawn to f6. Caruana detonates with a pawn shove, ripping lines open like dynamite against thin walls. Rook to gate. Adams desperately clings to defense, planting a rook as if it could patch a crumbling dam. Queen to h4. Caruana shifts his queen with icy calm, staring at Adams' king like a predator licking its lips. Pawn to d5. Adams tries to distract with central action, throwing dust in Caruana's face to buy a breath. Knight to f5. Caruana hops his other knight forward, every piece pointing daggers at Adams' monarch. Pawn to d4. Adams grabs material, but the move feels hollow against the incoming tidal wave. Queen captures h6, Caruana snatches the pawn with his queen, threatening mate like announcing the party is almost over. Rook captures f6. Adams tries to trade off attackers, but it feels like throwing pebbles at a storm. Knight to a7 check. Caruana slams the knight in with check, forcing Adams to scramble under flashing alarms. Rook captures e7. Adams takes it down, but every exchange leaves him closer to collapse. Rook to gone. Caruana coolly reloads, bringing in another rook, ensuring no escape exists for the black king. Queen to fight. Adams tucks his queen into the corner, reduced to the role of a terrified babysitter. Rook to g6. Caruana hurls the rook in with a check, slicing Adams' defenses like butter. Rook to g7. Adams blocks, stacking wood planks against a tsunami. Rook captures j7. Caruana removes the block without hesitation, each move tightening the noose. King captures g7. Adams is forced to step forward, his king stumbling into the killing field. Rook to gone. Caruana checks again, herding the black king like cattle toward its final pen. King to fate. Adams shuffles backward, each step looking more like surrender. Queen captures h6. Caruana delivers a brutal finishing touch, queen landing with check that signals the inevitable end. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support the channel. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.